It is 1:30 Universal Time. I'm Jim Tedder in Washington. President Bush has spoken to the nation about immigration reform. He explained a plan to send up to 6,000 National Guard troops to the United States border with Mexico. The President said the United States has not had full control of its border for many years. He called on Congress to provide money for improvements at the border. Mr. Bush said he will send the National Guard troops to the southern border to help the Border Patrol, but he said the troops will not be directly involved with law enforcement. The President also called for a temporary worker program that would create a legal path for foreign workers to enter the country for a limited period of time. Libya has welcomed the decision of the United States to re-establish normal diplomatic relations after more than 25 years. The United States also says it will no longer consider Libya a supporter of terrorism. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice says the decisions recognize Libya's rejection of terrorism. She says the policy change is also the result of Libya's decision to stop seeking nuclear weapons. The Brazilian government has offered to send troops to São Paulo state to help stop 4 days of violence that has killed 81 people. Many of those killed have been police. Justice Minister Marcio Tomás Bastos has said the federal government could send about 4,000 troops if local officials request help. But São Paulo Governor Claudio Limbo has so far refused. Police say the latest attacks by members of the First Command of the Capital Gang have destroyed bank buildings and public buses. Since Friday, gang members have shot at police stations and launched rebellions at several prisons in the state. At least 36 security workers and 14 suspected attackers have been killed. The United States has ordered a ban on weapon sales to Venezuela because of what it calls a lack of support for anti-terrorism efforts. American State Department officials accuse Venezuela of failing to stop Colombia's guerrillas from using Venezuelan land. A department spokesman also expressed concern that Venezuela is building ties with countries considered by the United States to be supporters of terrorism. Those countries include Iran and Cuba. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez says the move will not affect his country at all. But he also said that he will not suspend oil exports to the United States as a result of the ban. In London, Mr. Chavez called on the nations of the world to prevent military action in Iran because of its nuclear program. The European Union says it is ready to offer Iran civilian nuclear technology as part of a plan aimed at influencing the nation to stop enriching uranium. EU Foreign Policy Chief Javier Solana discussed the offer with reporters after EU foreign ministers met in Brussels, Belgium. He said an Iranian rejection of the offer will mean the country wants something different. On Sunday, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said Iran will reject any European offer that requires an end to the country's nuclear activities. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. The trial of the former leader of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, is set to continue Tuesday in Baghdad. He and 7 others are charged with crimes against humanity. Lawyers have presented documents and observations linking the 8 to the murder and torture of 148 Shiite Muslims in 1982. Earlier, Saddam Hussein refused to tell the court if he is guilty or innocent of the charges against him. The judge then provided the answer of not guilty. Also in Iraq, 4 teachers were shot and killed near the town of Balad Ruz. A Chinese official says his government plans to appoint more Catholic religious leaders without the approval of the Vatican. Liu Banyan is the vice chairman of China's government-controlled Patriotic Catholic Association. He told VOA that China has made such appointments for a long time and will continue to do so, with or without the Pope's approval. He said China needs more than 40 bishops. Earlier this month, the Vatican said it expects severe punishments in reactions to China's appointment of 3 bishops without church approval. The government in Beijing has controlled the Catholic Church in China since 1951. Chinese citizens caught attending churches not approved by the government can face criminal charges and imprisonment. China has changed the value of its money for the first time below an exchange rate of 8 yuan to the American dollar. Trading in Shanghai began with the yuan at its highest level since the value change last year. That was when China permitted the money to increase in value by 2%. The value of the yuan has increased slowly since then, and some American officials have criticized China's reforms as too slow. In Washington, a Treasury Department spokesman said the United States welcomes any evidence that China is moving toward a money revaluation. Chinese rescue workers have found the bodies of 14 villagers killed last month when a dam fell in northwestern Shanxi province. Chinese news reports say 3 other people are still missing from the accident April 13th. They do not expect any survivors. Officials say the dam was not approved for use. It was built by a gold mining company to contain waste from a mine. The families of all the victims have signed agreements with the company. Each family will receive about $16,000 for each victim. And now, briefly, here again is the major news of the hour, read in Special English. President Bush has spoken to the nation about immigration reform. He explained a plan to send up to 6,000 National Guard troops to the United States border with Mexico. And the Brazilian government has offered to send troops to São Paulo State to help stop 4 days of violence that has killed 81 people. And that's the news in VOA Special English. Jim Tedder reporting.